and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Reports hold that the war in Amazonia is underreported. It does not by any means mean the strength in Amazonia to flush out La Republique and be free is failing. It is not to be debated anymore that the people of southern Cameroon's Amazonia have accepted the Monday ghost towns fully. Visiting the streets in Amazonia, nothing but ghosts on today's Monday are seen. A measuring rod of the determination to oust La Republic from Amazonia is the Monday ghost towns. Today, Monday, is another ghost town with the same energy as the previous ones. Ghosts detecting the trend of affairs on the different streets. Shops and all La Republic run offices are closed in respect of the interim government's declared Monday ghost towns. It is just the conspiracy of a few stakeholders who are feeding fat from the colonial La Republic coffers trying to derail the move. The strength of Amazonia is the strength within, the reason for the unity in the respect of the Monday ghost towns. Outside the unity in Monday ghost towns, there is a lot more going on in the southern Cameroons that we would like to get to you in full details coming up in the full briefings of Undaunted tonight, right after the prime headlines.
Right, these are the prime headlines for today. Today, the 3rd of July, is another ghost town. Amazonians respected it. 3 courts after robbing passenger of 700,000 francs CFA on board a taxi in Bamenda. A Reverend Father in Mount Faye Diocese resigns from priesthood, saying church leadership has gone mundane. Fundi's burial is around the corner, as it is said that Fundi's children are begging. And on the foreign scene front, one country is ready to accept BRICS currency a month before the summit. And in sports, Qatar stunned Mexico to reach quarterfinals of Gold Cup football. Now let's get the news in detail.
This interim government is to make ABC a leader and a real warhorse of our struggle. We want to grow it, expand it, hire and train more hands, and broadcast round the clock, around the world, and take command of the media space of this world.
You can enjoy all round the clock, 24/7 exclusive moments of bliss as an ABC Amba TV Club member. A cappella. Latest Nigerian stroke African movies, global politics, ABC Amba News and updates, historical documentaries, and lots more. In our daily programs, we have Undaunted, ABC Amba News, bringing into the news untold stories with Onyi Opala and Star Smart. Exclusive discussion, revolutionary panel conversation, infotainment, edutainment, intro governmental debates on topical issues with Tar Paddy King, State of the Liberation Movement, fronting IG and people of Ambazonia's position, the Struggles Weekly Update with Secretary Martin Mungwa, PhD, FASC. Health is wealth, health education and awareness within the Ambazonian community with Dr. Yaya. Liberation Prayer, an intercessory ministry for Ambazonia with Pastor Victor Amba. Our freedom, spiritual awareness and education for the Ambazonian community with Pastor Victor Amba and Pastor Commando. Church and politics, neutralizing the myths and preconceived religious and political philosophies that limit the Christian involvement in the realms of decent politics with Pastor Commando. The Horizon, the voice of the Ambazonian woman with Dr. Patience Abiedo and Lady Casey. Our Amber History, bringing to limelight the hidden history of Ambazonia to the world with Pastor Commando. Appointment on community building, education on patriotism within the Ambazonian communities with Ma Rachel Itatima. Ethics for an Emerging Nation, watchdog of basic principles and morals of a nation at war with Ma Dorothy Ngwa. Upcoming programs: Pigeon News, Vernacular Talk Show, County Roots, Activists Corner, Amba Focus, only on ABC Amba Television. We the people, the voice of the voiceless. For 24/7 access, subscribe as a club member on www.abcambatv.com/subscribe.
Not to be debated any longer that the people of Amazonia have accepted the Monday Ghost Town fully. Visiting the street in Amazonia, nothing but ghosts are in charge. A measuring rod of this determination to hoist La Republic to Cameroon from Amazonia is the Monday's Ghost Town. Monday, that is today, July 3rd, in Bamenda in particular, and the entire Amazonia observed the Monday lockdown with equal strength as the previous. Report holds that the war in Amazonia is underreported. Well, it does not mean, or it does not by any means, the strength in the Amazonians to flush out La Republic to Cameroon and be free from failing. We will continue to strive. Well, this is where we'll begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. How are you doing, Sir?
Very well, Onyi. Good evening, Amazonians. The strength of Amazonia is the strength within, the reason for the unity in the respect of the Monday Ghost Towns. We wonder why such a united force in respect of Monday Ghost Towns. On Monday, July 3rd, 2023, today is another ghost town with the same steam as the previous ones. Ghosts detecting the trends of affairs on the different streets. Shops and all La Republic run offices are closed in respect of the interim government's declared ghost towns.
Curiously enough, the respect of the Monday's Ghost Town is not only an affair of the people of Ambazonian, but for all who are in Ambazonia. After all, when you are in Rome, you do what the Romans do. All our Republic to Cameroon run offices in Ambazonia are locked on Mondays. Even La Republic to Cameroon is acknowledging the fact that powers have changed. The million-dollar question is, why are these surrogates not packing out passively from Amazonia? Must they propagate all the killings or suffer pressure from the international committee before moving out?
Well, Undaunted visited the town of Bamenda to have a view of what it is like in the town. The ghost town was effective with all shops locked and no commercial mobility available. Away from the streets, Undaunted got into the quarters just to see the people of southern Cameroon's Amazonia celebrating themselves with sport activities. The message is clear, and La Republic is reading the handwriting on the wall right now that the entire Amazonia has resolved to frustrate all La Republic run activities through Monday ghost towns.
While the quest for fast cash is pushing many to involve in unspeakable things, this is a new order in the world, and Amazonia is no exception. Men of the underworld will not relent to outsmart others. Funny enough, the female food is always at the center of such. Two ladies and a man are inside the dragnet of the colonial La République du Cameroon gendarmerie officers after emptying the pocket of passengers with 700 francs CFA on board their taxi. The victim, after leaving the bank, was trailed by the hoodlums. Is it that they had a tip off from someone in the bank, or he was just a victim of circumstances?
Well, two women and a taxi driver are currently in the La Republique Gendarmerie custody in Bamenda after robbing a passenger in a township taxi. The incident became public knowledge in the below Foncha neighborhood in Quenza municipality when a man was seen exchanging words with a taxi driver and two of his passengers. As attention was paid to their exchange, it was noticed that the man was accusing the passengers and their driver of making away with his money worth 700,000 francs CFA.
Well, the victim told curious onlookers that he boarded the taxi at the Commercial Avenue neighborhood and was heading to Nkwem, not knowing what he was getting himself into. He explained that another lady entered the same taxi not far from where he got into the car, making three behind him, sitting in the middle of two women. While in the taxi, the other lady kept saying that, "Please, the tight," while rubbing her body with mine, the man recounted.
Now, at Cow Street, the driver goes on to explain the driver said it would be good if he checked the chairs. And after checking the chairs, he said the only option was to visit a mechanic and that he was not continuing with the journey and forced the victim to step out. The victim only realized he has been robbed after the taxi had left. He then hired a motorcycle and followed the vehicle, which he intercepted below Foncha, where he raised an alarm. The occupants were pulled out of the taxi and forced to produce the money. The money only came out after the robbers could no longer bear the pressure that was mounted on them by the population.
The money was in the keeping of one of the ladies, who is said to have removed it from her breastwear. Onlookers opted for mob just to be netted on them, while others said La Republic to Cameroon security forces be alert. Well, they were later taken away by the colonial gendarmerie officers for further investigations.
While handing them to the Colonial La Republic Gendarmerie officers is no guarantee that the population is safe. They will certainly bribe their way out to continue robbing on board a taxi. La Republic Occupational Forces of Law and Order, as is obvious, are corrupt and would even do the same thing as we reported before and guilty of freeing criminals in their keeping unlawfully.
Well, Reverend Kennedy Akwo, a priest from the Manfred Diocese in Mayo County who resides in the USA, issued his resignation letter to the Bishop of Manfred, Aloysius Fondong Abangalo, on the 1st of July 2023 and asked for it to be submitted to Rome. In his letter, he laid out some suggestions for the Manfred Diocese and the Bamenda Archbishop. He calls on the bishop to treat priests as their brothers and co-workers and for them to be fathers and spiritual fathers to priests. He stated that the bishop should try to be fathers, spiritual fathers to the priests and not to gossip and talk negatively about them, especially in public to Christians and priests, relatives who have money.
Well, he indicated that his motivation to serve God as a priest gradually deteriorated due to some lapses in the Diocese of Manfred, including political interest, love for money, and power. Reverend Kennedy Akwo lamented when the Church of Manfred from August 23rd, 2013 became more of a political battlefield where the love of money and power stole away the joy, love, peace, happiness, and spirituality of the priestly life and service. He admits he will continue doing the work of God, but not as a priest.
Well, moving on, scandalous reports reaching ABC Amber TV News have confirmed that a very rich politician's children with a begging borrow syndrome, which has engulfed the Cameroon community in the diaspora and which requires urgent attention, as it is a proof that dignity is not a currency for Funde's family. Well, the disease is always visible when someone dies and the family creates a WhatsApp forum to beg and pester friends and acquaintances for resources to celebrate the late person's life. Well, Undaunted gathered that this week in the United Kingdom, it is a turn to do the honors of the Anglophone, um, the chairman, Ninja Frudy, who sadly passed away as who Ambazonians think is a traitor at his residence in Yaoundé, the colonial Republic of Cameroon capital on Monday, the 12th of June,
Our chairman
2023.
Chairman John Furundi founded the Social Democratic Front Party (SDF) in Cameroon in the 1990 and has been widely credited with the advent of multi-party politics in Cameroon. However, for the last 25 years, the chairman has formed a profitable political business with the CPDM regime. His scandalous association with dictator Paul Biya has earned him over 12.5 million US dollars um, in the process and made him a very rich man, which makes a lot of Amazonians wonder why his children and family in the UK are going about engaging in this laborious activity of petitioning for funds in his name.
Well, we are asking, is this a habit or is this greed? Wow. John Frunde's family is demonstrating the same traits he possessed. Well, according to reports, he was self centered and devoid of emotion. The actions of his children and family in England are consistent with the personality of the fallen man. So, over the next few years, security officers, healthcare assistants, nurses, container loaders, and the unemployed within the Cameroon community in England will be harassed and asked to make contributions to celebrate the life of a man who betrayed his people and earned more than 12.5 million US dollars from politics and possessions as well. A man with foreign bank accounts all over the world where some of his treasures and loot are hidden.
Well, Undaunted has equally gathered that some friends have advised the family in UK not to engage in this public begging embarrassment, but like the chairman, his children were not persuaded by such genuine attempts to make them see sense in their looming foolishness. Dignity is a rare currency and is not what the Furundi's children possess and care about. Self awareness is evidently not something his children as well see as a modus operandi, and it is no surprise that a WhatsApp forum has been set up to achieve their questionable aims.
Well, money is needed to bury the dead, we all agree, but to go about it by compelling the poor to pay for the celebration of the life of a rich man, like John Friendly, is wrong and despicable. As the apple never falls far from the tree, the descendants are doing what they inherited from their master. Well, it may be normal for the families of people with humble and modest bank balances to seek community support after they die, but there is nothing normal for a very rich man's family to do so.
Well, the Fernandes family is not poor financially, as is obvious by now, but unfortunately, they've displayed a poor mentality. Their mental poverty is robbing them of their dignity, the dignity they're supposed to have given to their late father, at least. If La Republic was a true country, a man of Fernandes status should be given a state burial, given that true his relationship with Paul Biya, he saved this country from an imminent explosions in the 1990s. But Cameroon's poor, many of whom have fled poverty and the Amazonian War of Independence and are hiding in England, will not know any respect as Mr. Frundi's family engages in this embarrassing display. Maybe they have been contributing for others and now feel like it's their turn. Achidi Achu, former La Republic Prime Minister, said politics Njangi, you scratch my back, I scratch your back.
While Frundi, a man who triggered a wave of hope and optimism in the early 90s when he challenged Cameroon's 40-year octogenarian president, has quit the political stage with very negative ratings due to his incestuous relationship with the ruling party. He will, however, be remembered for the things he did when he was standing right.
Recent development has it that a justice opened an investigation on Monday following clashes between irregular migrants from sub-Saharan Africa and residents of Sfax, Tunisia's second city where illegal immigration has been causing great tensions for months. The clashes with stone throwing pitted migrants against residents of the Rand district. Spokesman for the Sfax prosecutor's office, Fauzi Masmoudi, told AFP. Vehicles and homes were damaged during the clashes, which caused no casualties, Mahmoud said. An investigation has been opened to determine those responsible and the causes of this violence. He added, according to local media, the police intervened by using tear gas to put an end to the clashes.
First in east central Tunisia is a starting point for a large number of illegal crossings to Italy. Its inhabitants regularly protest against the presence of irregular migrants in their city and demand
In our daily programs, we have Undaunted, ABC Amba News, bringing into the news untold stories with Onyi Opala and Star Smart. Exclusive discussion, revolutionary panel conversation, infotainment, edutainment, intro governmental debates on topical issues with Tar Paddy King, State of the Liberation Movement, Fronting IG, and People of Ambazonia's position, the Struggles Weekly Update.
All right, bringing you recent developments in Africa, it has it that a justice opened an investigation on Monday following clashes between irregular migrants from the sub-Saharan Africa and residents of Sfax, Tunisia's second city where illegal immigration has been causing great tensions for months. These clashes with stone throwing pitted migrants against residents of the Rand district. Spokesman for the Sfax prosecutor's office, Fauzi Masmoudi, told AFP. Vehicles and homes were damaged during the clashes, which caused no casualties. Masmoudi reported this. An investigation had been opened to determine those responsible and the causes of this violence, he added. According to local media, the police intervened by using tear gas to put an end to the clashes.
Well, first in east central Tunisia is a starting point for a large number of illegal crossings to Italy. Its inhabitants regularly protest against the presence of irregular migrants in their city and demands their departure. In the popular neighborhoods of the city where the migrants live, verbal and physical violence often breaks out between the two parties. The violence increased after a speech on the 21st of February by President Kais Said Slimane, irregular immigration, and presenting it as a demographic threat to his country.
Now, several local and international NGOs denounced the hate speech and intimidation against migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, broadcast on social network, which contributes to the mobilization against the most vulnerable groups and fuel violent behaviors against them. At the end of May, a 30-year-old Beninese migrant was fatally stabbed during an attack carried out by a group of young Tunisians in a working class neighborhood in Spask. Most migrants from sub Saharan Africa come to Tunisia to then try to reach Europe by sea, landing clandestinely on the Italian coast. Speaking of the perils migrants face, we have Egyptians who, on the other hand, dream of Europe when they set sail in the Mediterranean Sea but risk their lives in the process.
Fleeing poverty and repression with no plans for the future, more and more Egyptians are trying to reach Europe, often risking their lives, like the dozens caught in the recent shipwreck in Greece. All right. Meanwhile, I spoke to my son for the last time on the evening of 7th June. He told me he was leaving. 2 days later, told AFP the father of a 14-year-old boy who disappeared when a dilapidated and overloaded trawler sank off the Philippines on the night of 13th to 14th June. All right. And I mean, this is what a father had to say.
Well, in the village of Namna in the Nile Delta alone, the NGO Refugees Platform in Egypt, the RPE, has recorded 13 missing persons, including 9 minors. According to the authorities, 43 Egyptians survived. RPE, for its part, has received dozens of calls from families still without news in 2 villages in the province of Al Sharqiya. Alone, there were more than 40 families.
So far, 82 bodies have been removed and recovered from the waters following this shipwreck, probably one of the worst in the Mediterranean Sea. However, according to the UN, between 400 and 750 passengers were on board the trawler, including women and children. Now, according to director of RPE, he said, "We don't know how many Egyptians were on board, and the authorities have not announced the number of the missing Egyptians yet."
Well, only a talk show host close to the regime ventured to give a figure. According to him, 200 Egyptians were on board. The father of the young man who disappeared is still waiting for news. We went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to take a DNA sample, he told AFP, but unfortunately said that they don't know anything and that nobody is keeping them informed.
Between January and May, Frontex, the European border agency, recorded 50,300 arrivals of migrants in Europe via the central Mediterranean Sea, the most dangerous migratory route in the world. Others have undoubtedly landed but have not been spotted. In 2022, 1 in 5 migrants arriving in Italy was Egyptian, according to the European Union Asylum Agency. According to Rome, Egyptians are the largest group of arrivals in Italy, accounting for a third of all unaccompanied minors. Most of them, as the EUAA, are trying to reach Italy from Libya to escape the worst economic crisis in Egypt's history, but also the human rights situation, catastrophic under President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, which is according to the NGOs.
Now, Cairo regularly represents itself as an anti illegal immigration champion, demanding ever more funds from the Europeans. In June, French President Emmanuel Macron hailed an essential partner of the European Union in the fight against illegal immigration, according to the Egyptian presidency. Since 2016, no migrant boats have left the Egyptian coast. In August 2022, the European Commission announced that it will provide Egypt with a further 80 million euros in particular to finance the surveillance of land and sea borders. But for Mr. Khalil, the militarization of the borders is not a solution. It has merely shifted the problem as Egyptians are now taken to the sea from Libya. In Libya, the UN regularly denounces the massive arbitrary detentions of thousands of migrant men, women, and children rounded up in the streets or in their homes.
At the beginning of June, Libyan media even relayed unauthenticated videos showing nearly 1,000 Egyptians being expelled and forced to cross the border on foot. Well, the NGOs have no access to these militarized areas, says Mr. Kali. He says the penalties for smugglers are increasingly severe. But all these barriers have not stopped the 13 Egyptians from the Neman village from leaving, because as long as the new generation has no prospects for the future and no opportunity to make its voice heard, the departures will continue, he asserts.
Well, nine of them were under 18 because the profile of Egyptian migrants has changed. Mr. Kali explains that before they go to Europe to work for a few years, save up and return to Egypt to set up a small business. Today, he says the new generation they don't want to come back to Egypt because they think they have no future there. Well, fact has it that African migration has been on a steady upward trajectory for the past 2 decades. The record level of over 40 million African migrants represents a 30% increase from 2010, given continuing strong push factors, and as is obvious, the trend has continued even onto this year. Year after year, African migrants wound up in Morocco as the route to Europe. The Cameroon, Southern Cameroons, and French Cameroon, Ivorians, Malians on the streets of Casablanca's Olaf neighborhood seems as if the whole of Africa comes together. For many migrants, the Moroccan city is a stop and route to Europe and represents the dream of a better life.
Since the 17th of June 2022, reports has it that families are arrested at home in the middle of the night, herded into bushes, and then abandoned to their fate in towns in the middle of the desert. These members of the sub-Saharan African community living in Morocco have been frightened by the wave of arrests targeted migrants in the Lyon, a town known as a departure point for people hoping to reach Spain's Canary Islands. Most of the people targeted in these raids are from the Ivory Coast, the Cameroons, the southern Cameroons, especially Mali or Togo.
Well, Hassan Amari, an activist with the Moroccan Association for Human Rights, known by the acronym AMDH, who closely followed the situation, told that the police did not carry out arrests according to code because they were entering people's apartments without a warrant issued by a judge. Several people reported that after being arrested, they were locked up for several days in a filthy detention center on the outskirts of Laayoune. Some were then herded into buses and brought to other regions, often in the desert near the Algerian border.
Well, we've seen minors fleeing Egypt unaccompanied. We've seen Amazonians in their course to be free from the wars happening in their homeland end up stuck in huge numbers on inflatable boats at the mercy of whatever left they believe in. We have also seen southern Cameroonians amongst other sub-Saharan migrants who get beat up in Morocco terribly and forced to sign the voluntary deportation documents, thereby forfeiting the rights to asylum. And that's not all, but so many extreme cases, too numerous to mention, just to be away from the troubles of their countries and hope to find a better future in foreign countries. It's certain that if they could find talents and a future in their respective countries, none of these victims and migrants would take such risks, which even ends their lives on many occasions.
Well, the big mystery question is how and when can these be achieved in their homelands?
And on the foreign scene, the total number of countries that could challenge the US dollar on the global stage has reached 41. The developing nations that want to accept BRICS currency, they hail from Asia, Africa, and Eastern Europe. The countries that have shown interest to join the BRICS alliance ahead of the summit are Afghanistan, Algeria, Argentina, Iran, Bangladesh, Belarus, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Sudan, Syria, the United Arab Emirates, Thailand, Tunisia, Turkey, Uruguay, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe.
Belarus is the first country in Eastern Europe that expressed interest to accept the new BRICS currency. On the other hand, France has also shown its interest to attend the next BRICS summit in South Africa. Additionally, many countries in Africa remain on the sidelines and could announce their support for the BRICS currency after its launch. Kenya has urged African nations to stop using the US dollar and trade with native currencies within the continent.
On the Russia and Ukraine war, the much anticipated deployment of Western made tanks in Ukraine's counteroffensive had sparked hopes of a game changing advantage in the conflict. However, the hopes were damped on the 8th of June when a battle group unexpectedly encountered a perilous minefield south of Mala Chomchak in southern Ukraine, Zaporizhia Oblast. The Ukrainian brigades lost several of their most valuable vehicles, including a Leopard 2 A6 tank, over 12 M2 infantry fighting vehicles, and 3 Leopard 2R engineering vehicles.
Although the Western supplied tanks and armored vehicles played a vital role in protecting Ukrainian crews, these valuable assets were abandoned, resulting in some operational combat vehicles falling into the Russian hands. Shortly after the incident, the Russian Ministry of Defense made a video public showcasing what it claimed to be captured German made Leopard 2 main battle tank and US made M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles in Ukraine.
While in sports, Qatar upsets Mexico 1-0, reached the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, while Jesus Ferreira became the first player to score back-to-back hat-trick for the USA in a 6-0 win over Trinidad and Tobago. Jamaica also qualified for the last eight from Group A with ease, behind the USA after beating St. Kitts and Nevis 5-0 on Sunday in Santa Clara, California.
Now, in Formula One, Red Bull's Max Verstappen salted to his fifth consecutive win after dominating at the Austrian Grand Prix on Sunday. The Dutchman was largely untroubled as he extended his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship to 81 points, with a third world title already seeming inevitable. Gabellison has more.
Latest world sports. Football. Qatar stunned Mexico to reach quarterfinals of Gold Cup football. Qatar upset Mexico 1-0 to reach the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, while Jesus Ferreira became the first player to score back-to-back hat-tricks for the USA in a 6-0 win over Trinidad and Tobago. Jamaica also qualified for the last eight for Group A with ease behind the USA after beating St. Kitts and Nevis 5-0 on Sunday in Santa Clara, California. In Group B, Qatar shocked already qualified Mexico to qualify in second place, denying Honduras, who were eliminated despite beating Haiti 2-1. Qatar, who were playing for the second time as a guest team in the tournament for North and Central America and the Caribbean, survived the second half onslaught from Mexico to pull off a famous victory. The 2022 World Cup hosts, coached by Carlos Queiroz,
from Portugal, took the lead in the 27th minute when Musab Kider whipped in across from the right and Hazem Shehata found the target with an angled header. That proved to be the only real effort on goal from the Gulf side as Mexico dominated but could not find a way through. Santiago Gimenez, who had survived a red card review for a swinging arm on a Qatari defender, fired wide from a promising position, and then Edson Alvarez headed against the post. Deep in stoppage time, Israel Reyes had another chance to level and help Honduras into the knockout stage, but his header was also off target. Qatari, the reigning Asian champions, reached the semi-finals of the Gold Cup in their previous guest appearance 2 years ago. Their victory meant Honduras' comeback win against Haiti was in vain, an agonizing outcome for the Central American side, whose players waited on the field as Qatar clung on. It was a different story for the USA, who after an early scare utterly dominated against a poor Trinidad team. The Caribbean side went close to opening the scoring in the 11th minute in Charlotte when winger Levi Gershia crossed from the right, but Jovan Jones fired his volley over the bar. 3 minutes later, Ferreira, who had scored 3 in Wednesday's 6-0 win over St. Kitts, opened his history-making account with a smart first touch and quick finish after a pullback from Dejon Jones. Ferreira then doubled the lead when Alexanders put in a ball from the left, and while Trinidad keeper Marvin Phillip kept out Ferreira's first effort, the FC Dallas forward pounced on the loose ball and fired home. Colombia-born Ferreira grabbed his third from the penalty spot, confidently converting after the Georgi Mihailovic was brought down in the box. The Americans lost momentum after the break, and Trinidad went close when Shannon Gomez struck the post with a fierce drive in the 62nd minute. But 19-year-old substitute Kit Cowell made it 4-0, keeping his cool to round Philippe and slot home. And moments later, he struck the post after courting in from the left. Gianluca Buzio made it 5 by side-footing a Julian Gressel pass into the net, while Brandon Vasquez completed the scoring after more good work from Cowell. Jamaica were too strong for tournament debutants St. Kitts, going behind after half an hour when Kahim Paris's low ball across the box was tuned in by the grasping arm of keeper Julani Ajibald. After the Reggae Boys had 2 efforts ruled out for offside, John Russell doubled the lead after a clever backheel from Aston Villa winger Leon Bailey. Dishon Bernard made it 3-0 after a jinking run from the influential Demarai Gray, and goals from Daniel Johnson and Corey Borg completed the rout. Both the USA and Jamaica finished in Group A on 7 points, having drawn in their meeting, but the Americans topped the group due to a better goal difference. The Ashes 2023. Australia off spinner Nathan Lyon ruled out of Ashes with calf injury. Australia off spinner Nathan Lyon will miss the rest of the Ashes series against England with a calf injury he sustained in the second test at Lord's. Lyon, who has 496 test wickets, suffered the issue on day 2 of the encounter. His absence was confirmed as Australia left him out of their squad for the remaining 3 tests because of a significant calf tear. Batter Matthew Renshaw has also been omitted from the Australia squad. Australia lead the series 2-0, having won by 43 runs at Lord's and by 2 wickets in the first test at Edgbaston. Spinner Todd Murphy, who took 14 wickets on a tour in India early this year, could replace Lyon. His stock ball is good enough in international cricket, said Lyon. We have seen that in India, in arguably the hardest place to bowl spin. It will be a different challenge when the England batters. If they do come at him, it provides Todd with a decent challenge, but a chance to leave his footmarks here in England. It is a big Ashes series. He's excited by the opportunity. Lyon took 8 wickets in Australia's victory in the first test at Edgbaston. He dismissed opener Zach Crowley at Lord's to take his 496th test wicket when he was playing his 100th consecutive test. He then sustained his injury on day 2 of the second test when he pulled up as he ran to field a ball. He hobbled out to bat for his side on day 4 and scored 4 runs as he added 15 with Mitchell Starc. Formula 1. Max Verstappen dominates in Austria to win fifth consecutive Grand Prix. Red Bull's Max Verstappen sauntered to his fifth consecutive win after dominating at the Austrian Grand Prix on Sunday. The Dutchman was largely untroubled as he extended his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship to 81 points, with a third world title already seeming inevitable. "I don't like to think about that yet," Verstappen told reporters after the race when asked about winning another championship. "I'm just enjoying the moment, driving this car, working with the..." Ferrari's Charles Leclerc won an exciting battle to beat Verstappen's teammate Sergio Perez into second. Once again, Verstappen started on pole and cruised to his seventh win out of this season's 9 races. It rounded off a near-perfect weekend for the 25-year-old, who also won Saturday's sprint race. "I think the whole weekend we have done a really good job. The sprint weekend is always very hectic and a lot of things can go wrong, and luckily, a lot of things went right for us this weekend," Verstappen added. However, Verstappen did see his run of leading 249 successive race laps end in Austria when he pitted on lap 26, allowing Leclerc to take a very temporary lead. Before the start of the Grand Prix, a minute's silence was held in tribute to the 18-year-old driver Dylan van 't Hoff, who died during a junior race in Belgium on Saturday. Dylan was killed as a result of a crash during the second Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine race at Spa-Francorchamps. "Extremely sad to hear the news about Delano today," Verstappen tweeted on Saturday. "I want to send my condolences to Delano's family and loved ones. Rest in peace." Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
Well, thank you so much, Gab Ellison, for that report. And with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at our major stories.
We brought to you the July 3rd Monday, another ghosted Monday in Amazonia. Also, three who got caught after robbing a passenger of 700,000 franc CFA on board a taxi in Bamenda. Brought to you a Reverend Father of Mount Faith Diocese who resigns from priesthood, saying church leadership has gone too mundane.
Well, as Friday's burial is around the corner, his children gets to the begging point of life. 41 are ready to accept BRICS currency a month before the summit. And in sports, we told you that Qatar stunned Mexico to reach quarterfinals of Gold Cup football. And that was it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on George Stories. On behalf of Star Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC and the images. Good night and God bless you.